Hey, Alex back from Board Game Co, and this is To Back or Not to Back, where we're going to dive into a variety of crowdfunding campaigns, talking about the games, the pledge levels, does it make sense to get them, all of that and more. Before we dive into it, we usually do like to start, on the other hand, with our Cult of the Now. Cult of the Now is a segment where we take a look at a currently available game, in this case on the Underground London and Berlin, and remind you that as much as we're about to go through a variety of crowdfunding campaigns that may be tempting your interest, there are always great games available now as well. It's a little bit of a counter FOMO splashed in before we go ahead and dive into all those games. And this week we have On the Underground London and Berlin, a remake of the original On the Underground, put out by Little Creations. This is the newer version of that game, and if you missed it on crowdfunding, now's your chance to go ahead and pick up the retail edition of the game over on Miniature Market for $28. Checking out all the reviews, seeing if it's a game for you. It's a very interesting gaming system. If you haven't had a chance to see it or check it out, it is worth looking at if you like those kinds of travel networking type games with a little degree of passenger management. Very interesting system. Anyways, with that, we're going to go ahead and dive into the crowdfunding campaigns. Usual reminder, of course, that please keep in mind that I do work for GameFound. I've been doing this series for quite some time, but I do work for GameFound, and please take any potential bias into account. With that, we're going to go ahead and start off with board game adjacent. This is going to be Tainted Grail TTRPG Song of a Dying World. This game was already on crowdfunding. It was over on GameFound already. They're doing a relaunch campaign to kind of, I assume just to tap into the audience, see who else they missed, but they're currently doing fairly well. 750 backers, $70,000 raised. This is basically an RPG based on the Tainted Grail universe. So if you like Tainted Grail, or if you like RPGs, or if you like one or the other, if you like both of those things, you definitely should check this out. If you like one or the other, it's more of a question mark, but you can go ahead and check out the Tainted Grail TTRPG if you want. Also, we did content on the game as well if you want to check out that. From there, we're going to go ahead and dive into the actual board game, starting off with the Pirate Republic Africa Gambit. 565 backers, $61,000 raised, 7 days to go. The Pirate Republic is the new version, or the Pirate Republic Africa Gambit is the new standalone version of the Pirate Republic, which I think came out in 2017, I want to say. I could be wrong with the date, but I want to say a 2017 game. This is a seafaring adventure game, a deck building game, which you're going to be traveling the high seas, trying to level up your pirates, trying to go around and accomplish your objectives, and this is going to be adding some new things to that game system that's already out. I think it's a 7.1 on BGG if I recall correctly, but this is basically continuing that deck building, pirating, seafaring adventure. If you've played games like Merchants, oh my gosh, what's it called again? Merchants and Marauders. Wow, it's been so long. Merchants and Marauders is old school. I remember when I got into the hobby trying to track that game down. That is a hard to get game. Anyways, if you like that kind of game, if you like Xia Legend of Adrift system, if you like deck building in general, this might be a game for you. Designed by Tom Butler, he actually did, I think, Patriots and Redcoats, if I'm not mistaken. A game I'm always interested in, never actually got a chance to try, but this is going to give you the standard Swashbuckler pledge for $79, the Collector Treasure pledge for $99, which is going to be giving you the additional, the collector's edition of the game. It's going to be the collector's edition of the game with the upgraded bits for $99, and then for $119, you're also going to get the premium chips on top of everything else if you want that version of the game. That's going to be a small upgrade from the original cost of the original game, which I think started at $59 for standard and moved the way up, but I believe this has more ways to play the game, I believe including a campaign mode as well, if you want to dive into it there. As far as should you back or should you not, will it hold its value? Judging it based on the original Pirate Republic, I would guess not on this one. The original Pirate Republic is a game that once you bought it, if you did want to go ahead and sell it, if it wasn't the game for you, people were selling it for less than what they paid for it. I don't think there's as much demand there. Again, it's doing fairly well as far as the campaign goes, but 565 backers is not a mass amount of demand. It's a relatively doing well, but I do think that means that if this is a game that's not for you, it's likely one that you'll be taking a small hit on in the secondhand market. Then we have Europa Universalis TPoP, Defined Destiny Expansion Plus Reprint. This is basically Europa Universalis, a very well acclaimed 8.7 rated BGG game. Well, it's an 8.7 on BGG. I explained that horribly. It's a 4X game with a historical aspect to it. It's rated an 8.7 on BGG, currently doing incredibly well in that sense. Currently at 2,000 backers, 429,000 euro raised with 8 days left to go. And this is a reprint of the game, giving you access to the game if you missed it, and as well as a new expansion, the Defined Destiny expansion as well, giving you more content for the game. I'm not going to be heavily going into how this one plays. In fact, if you want to check it out, 3 Minute Board Games has a video on the game. A fantastic channel if you've missed it. 3 Minute Board Games likes to go into, well, how a game plays, usually in 3 minutes, which usually means they're in between that 3 to 4 minute mark, but under the 4 minute mark. This one supposedly broke 3 Minute Board Games. So if you want to see the game that broke 3 Minute Board Games, this one has a lot more going on to it. It is an epic game that I think the game time officially rates it as like up to 6 hours of play, or says 2+ hours. 2+ hours. This is not a 2+ hours. Maybe it's 2+ hours per player. But this is a longer game that I've seen people on BGG saying it's a game that you want to play sometimes over several days. So even that, 6 hours BGG potentially has it might be an optimistic rating, or maybe I just think, split 6 hours over multiple days. This is going to be a longer 4X experience that is created incredibly well from those who have played it. So if you do like that genre of game, if you like the historical aspect, instead of having all your space 4X games, all your 4X games be in space, this may well be one to check out to see if it's for you. As far as the pledge levels, we have the €180 for the reprint, we have €48 for the Defying Destiny expansion, €135 for the standard edition, and then Defying Destiny with a portrait for €170 before we dive into the upgraded options. That's going to be the portrait is going to have you as a card, as an advisor or leader in the game. For €225, you'll get the returning backer all-in, so this assumes you do have the base game, but it gives you all the various goodies from trays to tokens to the Neophyte mats, all of those things. And we have the newcomer all-in pledge for €435, not a small amount of money, but if you are invested in this game, well, you can go ahead and check this one out, as 197 other people already did. As far as should you back it, should you not, will it hold its value, all of that. Looking at the original Europa Universalis game, this one actually surprisingly really didn't. Games like this I find generally either hold their value or come pretty close to holding their value, but this one I did really see a big drop off. If you look at the original Kickstarter campaign, if you look at the price of the game compared to how well it did in the secondhand market, this is definitely one where the secondhand market definitely took a big hit, and the price of the game this time round is even more expensive. So I do have a harder time believing this one will hold its value. If it's a game system that doesn't work for you, you might be fighting with other people who found that sometimes longer games are not always the games that hit the table, and some people will move on from their ambitious purchase, and you'll be fighting with those for trying to sell it at a reasonable price point. Moving on over here, we have Sovereign Fall of Wormwood, originally called Wormwood, but now Sovereign Fall of Wormwood, a TCG style game, but not actually a TCG, and not even designed for 2 players. So when you see a TCG style game, usually they're 2-player games. This one is actually optimized around 3 to 4 players, but does supposedly work really well at 2 as well. But it seems like 3 and 4 players is more the target audience for this one. 974 backers, $93,000 raised, 10 days to go. This is going to be a closed TCG-like system. There's going to be the base game and the expansion. The base game is going to be the core game over here, 180 completely unique cards divided into 6 constructed decks, and they cover this in the rules themselves or in the campaign, but that means you sometimes could have multiple people playing. You could have 2 3-player games going on at the same time, or a 4-player game and a 2-player game. Each deck represents another player, and you could absolutely divide them up and play that way. And you can go ahead and get the expansion as well, the core game plus XL's Vita expansion, which can be $75 for 320 cards divided up amongst 10 decks. And again, you could have multiple games. You could have 4, 4, and 3. No, that's not right. You could have a 3, 3, and 4-player game, or 4, 2, and 2. Nope, a 4, 4, and 2. You can have all different combinations of player counts diving into the game with the same game system. So if you have the game and expansion, you could go ahead and give people different decks and have them all playing their own games, which is a nice little perk in case you find yourself catering to larger game groups, having the complete variety of all the systems over here, the complete variety of the decks, knowing you can actually have a bunch of people all playing the same game, not necessarily with each other the whole entire time. That's a nice little extra perk on top of things. But then if you really want more cards, if you want the all-in, we have the all-in, all of Sovereign for $230 to give you basically everything you would need to play with 4 of your friends for everything. So you guys want to play the same decks, the same this, same that. This is going to give you all of that options over there. And then you have a personalized deck option for $2,000 in case you want to go ahead and get a completely personalized deck, one-of-a-kind playable deck tailored to your request from the Sovereign system. As far as should you back or should you not will it hold this value, games like this don't generally do that often. For whatever reason, crowdfunding tends to really pull in people who want to spend their money on TCG collectible games. But when it comes to TCG adjacent games, there are some exceptions, but usually those style of games, they do fairly okay, I'd say, on the secondhand market, but they usually don't fully hold their value. So if you're someone who's diving into this game, this is likely one. And again, I will say it's actually priced fairly reasonably. That, $75 to get your hands on 10 decks, that's a fairly reasonable price point for the amount of content you're getting out of the system. So that will help it a bit, the perception of value, and again, it's doing fairly well with 1,000 backers almost and 10 days to go on the campaign. I think it will likely hold most of its value, but probably not all of it if you're getting this game. We have Iliad and Ichor, two-player strategy games from Arena Knizia and Bitewing Games. Both of these, by the way, look great and very much in my alley. I'm very excited to play these ones when they eventually come out. But 1,800 backers, $140,000 raised, 10 days to go on the campaign, coming to you from Bitewing Games. They are continuing their their series of, well, crowdfunding games, but also working with Reina Knizia, as they have with a bunch of titles so far. This one over here, they have Iliad and Ichor, the 2 different games, $29 for Iliad, and it's going to come with 2 extra bags, a additional $7 value, I think they say, and there's going to be Ichor for $29, giving you the Kickstarter expansion, the free Ichor expansion, a Kickstarter exclusive offer, which is valued at $14. And then you have both together, for $58 to give you the $79 value, and that's where they break down the different values on these. But again, you have to factor in the shipping on that as well, although I will say shipping is very reasonable on this one, in this campaign. And then you have the Mythos Collection Deluxe Bundle, which gives you all the various upgraded components for $95 in case you want all of that, before you dive into retailer pledge options. As far as the 2 games, they go into a lot more details about the campaign page, but the basic idea is Iliad is going to be a game where you place down a token and execute its ability, and you're trying to be mindful of getting majorities in the rows or columns as you go in order to get the various god bonuses, and there's also a score tiebreaker in case both players get the god bonuses. You're really trying to utilize the abilities and the placement on those boards in order to structure and set off that you're the ones who get the right tiles at the right time. That's going to be the core idea of Iliad. Ichor, on the other hand, is a game where you're going to be moving your heroes across the board until they either hit the end of the board or another hero, and then putting down your own tokens on that row, completely how far you moved, in order to manipulate and get as many of your tokens on the board to deplete all of your tokens before your opponent. And again, there's expansion content there's abilities, lots of other things going on. I'm giving you the stilled version of how these games work, although you could check into any of the content creators who covered it if you want either more thoughts or more ideas of how the actual game plays. That's going to be the basic idea of these expansions over here, of the games and the expansions. As far as should you back or should you not, will it hold its value? I think these ones will, and it's a little harder to say. Bitewing games are not, Bitewing games have a little bit all over the place. They've come out with great quality production and very short and accessible rules in their games, which is great. I would say that in today's gaming landscape, giant big box games have kind of seen a hit over time, whereas you can see quicker, easier to understand and table games have consistently been more of an appeal because people are like, I want a game that is not a homework assignment to dive into. And so very often games like from All Play games from Bitewing games, those have been doing very well, finding their niche as far as giving you strategic reward without necessarily needing 40 pages of rules to get there. And so I think these likely will fall into those categories, although Reina Knizia is always an interesting one himself because Reina Knizia puts out so many games that he has had a ton of classics that have come out, but he's also had a lot of games that were in the forgettable category. They weren't bad, they just weren't, the best of the best. And I don't know where these two will lie. I haven't played them myself. I will say from a personal interest, they very much do look like games that I would enjoy. And that one, combined with the fact that the shipping is very reasonable, combined with the extra stuff you're getting, does put this into a category where I think it's more likely to hold most of its value. The tricky part is, especially with Iliad, the 2 extra bags on their own, not necessarily enough of a premium thing for people to really seek out a copy down the road. The expansion content in Ichor will help it a bit more though, so I think the combination of the 2 will put into a place where it's likely to at least hold its value, if not necessarily more than that. And again, the cheaper shipping helps as well. From there we have Tsukuyumi Amaterasu Rising, the newest expansion and upgrade content for Tsukuyumi New Dawn, I can't remember all the name, Tsukuyumi, the original content for Tsukuyumi. This is going to have 1,200 backers so far. We have $172,000 raised and 11 days to go. Tsukuyumi, in association with Great Fox Games, is putting out more content for the second edition of Tsukuyumi Full Moon Down, that's what it was. This is going to be a area control, highly asymmetric game where you're going to have completely different classes as far as how they all operate and run, what they do, the faction, all those things. This is an incredibly asymmetric area control game where you're going to be, I think you're going to be bidding on, I can't remember the exact turn sequence, either way, you're going to be playing cards, taking actions, and taking advantage of your own asymmetry in this clash not really to the death, but to the winner of the game. You're going to have a few options over here for the actual campaign. You have €40 for the returning backer pledge. That's going to be giving you the resized boxes as well as the game trays and whatnot, all the game trays and the V2 upgrade pack. We have for €93, we have a starter pack over here. That's going to be an introduction to the world of Tsukuyumi in case you want to dive in there. We have €135 for the returning backer all-in. That's going to give you all the new expansion content plus the upgrade kits as well, so you can have all of that. And then we have for €280, we have the all-in at a reduced price to give you basically every single thing for the game. We have the all-in, which is gone, for €299, so you get the cheaper version of that for the €280. So if there's any backers left here, which there are 6 backers left here, if you swap your pledge to the other pledge, I think you're going to save €20. So if you're one of these 6 backers who are currently at the full all-in, and you want to save yourself a €20 a piece, then go ahead and switch to the other pledge. But basically, that's the general idea of what this campaign is. It's new content, some slight upgrades to Tsukuyumi, Full Moon Down, a highly isometric game that's generally been well received. I think one of the pain points was that the first to the second edition, I think the first edition was very well received. Second edition made it more premium and gave it more like coolness because of all the miniatures and production and all that. But the tricky part is that the miniatures, from a lot of people have said that the miniatures actually kind of took a little bit away from the accessibility of the gameplay. Sure, it looks better on the table, but now it's a little harder. You have to go ahead and be checking the faction cards as opposed to simply seeing things printed on the standees, which does take away a little bit from the accessibility of such a highly asymmetric game experience. But that said, it's still rated well. Like, I think the 7.9 is probably from the original edition, because I think the second edition got a 7.5 if I'm not mistaken, so I think they're pulling in from the original, not the second edition, which is technically the game you're actually getting over here, so that's a little complicated and a little tricky over there. As far as should you back, should you not, will it hold its value? Just based on BG sales on the current second edition, I'd say not on this one. This one is a very well received game. That said, it definitely falls into the, giant crowdfunding miniature bloat aspect, combined with the printing issues that they've had with Grey Fox, and combined with the second edition and the miniatures versus the standee version, does put this in a weird place where I think overall, if it's not a game for you, you'll get most of your money back, but yeah, I don't think you'll be getting all of it, not based on the current sales of how things have gone from the last campaign over on the second-hand market. Moving on, we have Odalin Dungeon of Doom from Dragori Games. Odalin's going to have 4,300 backers, $1.2 million raised, 10 days to go on this campaign. Odalin is going to be the newest system in the Dragori line, which is actually only the second game they've put out. They did the entire Teneris system, which they've had Teneris and then Teneris Adventures, they've had Arena of the Contest, they've had Teneris RPG, but all of this stuff is within the Teneris ecosystem, and now they're branching out into Odalin, a game that is very much inspired by Diablo style mechanics, that kind of dungeon crawling, fighting guys, gathering loot, leveling up. But in the game, you're going to be taking on a hero, and you're going to be combining a hero and a demon effectively. So you're going to be combining those two aspects, and that will literally be building your cards over there, combining the benefits of a hero and demon, while you try to be mindful of balance in the game, because balance is going to be a key component of the game, while trying to be mindful of your own powering up, where you're going to go ahead and power up, unleashing your own inner forces, but being mindful of not taking advantage of that in a way that's going to hurt you more in the game. That's the general idea of the gameplay. It's going to be very miniature heavy. They have a whole bunch of reasons to back over here, such as the game is not going to be coming to retail. There's no reprint for the next 2 years guaranteed. They have this 5 months guarantee of delivery, and to be very clear, that is not a guarantee that you'll be seeing the game in 5 months. Rather, that is a guarantee that that they're guaranteeing you'll get the game with at least 5 months after the date that they promise. So I haven't actually checked exactly when it is, but whatever the date that they're saying you're going to get it, they're saying at least within 5 months from that date. So they're kind of giving themselves a leeway of being up to 5 months late, which I'm fine with. I just want to make sure you understand that when you read that 5 months guarantee and then come back 4.5 months from now wondering why the game isn't shipping yet, that's because you have to understand what exactly that is. They also have stable pledge and stretch pay, all those things giving you the reasons to back now. But past that, this is going to be a giant campaign game. You can play it solo, you can play it multiplayer. It's going to be very much built into the Diablo system, like I said already. Lots of unique cards, combining heroes and demons and all those things together. You can check out coverage already from King of Ravage if you want to see opinions on the game already, and I'll have coverage for you before the campaign ends as well. When is the campaign ending? The campaign is ending in 10 days. I will most likely have coverage for you before the campaigns as well. At the very least before late pledges, but I should have coverage before the campaign ends. It's been a busy few weeks. Anyways, that's basically Odalin Dungeons of Doom. As far as should you back, oh wait, we didn't cover the pledge levels. I'm sorry, that's a big part of this over here. Pledge levels. Pledge levels, you're gonna have the full immersion pledge for €299, basically giving you all the various things from the original game, the miniatures, the Sands of Destruction, the Manticore, Scenario Pack, Demon Pack, a dice collection, digital awards, all of that in the full immersion. Then there you have over here the core box gonna be $129 for the core box of the base game plus the miniatures pack. The extended campaign is going to be $219, giving you a bunch of extras, but not really everything in the campaign. And then again, the $299 is going to be the full immersion aspect for the game. We have a bunch of various stretch goals you can see revealed over here, but it's going to be a giant miniature heavy game of gathering various things and upgrading your heroes and getting more loot as you try to have fun in this semi-dungeon crawling type experience. As far as should you back or should you not, will it hold its value? Overall, I think yes. While it doesn't have the same quick success that the Teneris system has, again, that makes sense to a degree. This is a new IP within their system. It's not as proven, so to speak. And then also you have the aspect that again, there is some big box burnout that we've seen. Like, you know, fewer and fewer big box campaigns have seen the levels that we've seen them get to in the past. I think that there's a general crowdfunding burnout to a small degree, but also big box campaign burnout as well. But that said, I do think that price point wise on this one, combined with the fact that this is going to be hard to get your hands on it for quite some time, I do think this is still one that's likely to hold its value. Looking at objectively at the campaign, as far as what you're paying, what you're getting, all the giant big box miniatures, this is still a game that's going to have enough demand, and the coverage in it so far has been positive enough that I think there's definitely going to be that degree of following or pull for the game once it does come out. So I think it is one that is more likely to hold its value. Moving on, we have Blood from Ludus Magnus Studios. 446,000 euro raised, 2,500 backers, 11 days left to go. Blood is the newest game from Ludus Magnus Studio, giving you a slightly vampiric, slightly carnival type situation in which you are a bunch of, carnival people taking on a bunch of vampires, trying to kill them with all your unique abilities. There's going to be several ways to play this game. There's going to be single shot, there's going to be campaign, there's going to be general roguelite, in which you're going to be slowly going through a progression of taking out bosses, gathering more loot, leveling up as you go through it. But there's going to be a bunch of ways to play the game, but ultimately you're going to be taking control of a bunch of heroes in the game, and taking control of a bunch of heroes in the game, and trying to take out whatever vampire boss you happen to be fighting at any given moment. I do highly recommend checking out the campaign video on this page. I think they did an absolutely excellent job with the campaign video, really pulling you in both to, well, the visuals of it, because the game looks amazing, but also pulling you into how the game actually plays with a very unique card row system. Well, not very unique, a unique enough card row system where you're going to have various minions, you're going to have the various goals you're trying to accomplish, and then every round you're going to be playing cards which will also power up the boss, but that's also going to weaken the boss because he's exerting himself. So there's a nice combination and a tempo of trying to figure out when do you want to try to push the boss a little further, when do you want to try to have a slight easy turn, and when do you really want to lean into it and get as much as possible in the game. You're going to be managing that tempo as you go through the experience while attempting to not die or not lose to whatever boss you're fighting against. There's going to be a ton of content for this game. There's going to be stretch goals, there's daily reveals, there's monetary stretch goals, there's social stretch goals, a lot of things introducing new content, all of it looking beautiful. Ludus Magnus Studios is experimenting with these dual layer things, which I think they did in the past with that hacking style game. I can't remember the name of it offhand, but they did in the past. I really like the look of it. I think it does work really well with this vampiric blood type theme over here. So everything looks amazing, and it's giving you solid gameplay on top of it. You can check out my review of the game, which I overall like the game. Definitely had some complaints. I do know that Ludus Magnus Studios is already looking into some of those things as far as the general accessibility and symbology, but there were a lot of things I did like about the game, and I do hope this is one that really nails the landing on the game. And then you can also check out a gameplay in case you want to get a general feel for it without having to worry about opinions or any of that. But past that, as far as the pledge levels over here, we have the Endless Night for 299 euro. That's going to be basically the full experience, the all-in, giving you everything in the game. We have the Essential Edition, which is for 65 euro, giving you a very reasonable price point of the game, but this is going to be the standee version, so you have to be, not necessarily needing all those over-the-top miniatures. You have the Premium Edition for 109 euro, which will give you the miniatures, and you have the Crimson Carnival, which is going to be, again, the most of the stuff, but not necessarily everything, for 209 euro on the game. And then you can go through the various stretch goals, daily reveals, pledge levels, all those things. Not pledge levels, did pledge levels on the game. That's basically that. As far as should you back it, should you not, will it hold its value? I actually think it's more likely to do so. I think the overall game experience was very solid. I think the game looks amazing. I think the gaming experience was pretty solid. It does feel a little different some things out there, like they have their own nice little twist on the dungeon crawler / roguelite. Honestly, it's probably most similar to Grim Coven as far as the general feeling the game is giving with the upgrading and the bosses and the overall scenarios. So overall, it's going to be falling into that kind of category. But I think they did a good enough job on the game, a great job on the production. And I think the fact that a lot of the content's not going to be available in retail, like the standee version, sure, that'll be available. But a lot of the deluxe versions, the miniatures, all that's not going to be available in retail. And that's going to mean that you have this well-produced, well-looking game that I think is good enough that's going to pull people in. Combined with the limited availability, I think this is one that's more likely to fall into the holding its value category overall. From there we have HEXplore, Mountains of Godai from HEXplore Games. We have $433,000 raised, 2,126 backers, 11 days to go. This is the, I think, 5th chapter in the HEXplore universe. The HEXplore universe is a giant adventure game with building heroes, tons of combinations. I think they're touting that's like over 2 million combinations at this point. And each system has had a slightly different focus as far as how the game goes. And the Mountains of Godai seems to be focusing a bit more on the tower defense element of things. But again, this system has had so many different versions, so many different systems. It's had little mini adventure books. It's had full-on campaign experiences tacked onto the games. You can get all of that and more. Well, all of that, I guess. You can get all of that on this campaign as well. So if you've missed out on anything in the Explored system, this could be your opportunity to go ahead and, well, try to get some of the things you may have missed out on in the Explored system. Although it is going to cost you a pretty penny if you want all of it, because there's a lot of here explored over here. But as far as this one, this is going to be leaning into the hero building building tower defense system, kind of again within the HEXplore units, within the HEXplore framework, with the ability to cross-compatible with other content and build your own heroes in that 2 million plus combinations. This is going to be an incredibly ambitious game system that has continued to thrive and develop in a variety of ways. Again, from the game systems, from the campaign mode, from all of that in this game over here. There's going to be a whole bunch of sections as far as all the things you could try to get by the various volumes of the game, because there's like 5 volumes: the Dead King, the Force of Agramon, the Sands of Shirax, the Domain of Nizra Noctis, the Mountains of Godai, 5 different domains and systems within here, and a ton of content. We have the Elementalist Pledge over here for $124. It's going to give you the base game as well as both expansions, the Return to Shadown and Return to Capricorn. We have the Mountaineer, which will just give you the base game. So again, if you are looking for that budget pledge option, if you don't feel the need to break the bank and you just want to go ahead and dive into the system, that could well be a good way to do so at a reasonable enough price point. This is more of a standee based system, not fully diving into all the miniatures and all that. It's trying to give you the gameplay over the production. We have Shogun over here, which is going to give you the core game and then the Return to Shadown expansion. The Shaman, which is going to give you the core game and a Capricorn expansion, and then again back up over here for 124 you get both of them, and for 149 you also get that fancy looking crate on top of it all. And then the Void Reaver is going to give you the core all-in, $559, and no, that's not the all-in, that's the core all-in, giving you all the main gameplay for the game system. But if you want all the RPG things, so again, there can be see various optional buys here. I'm not going to fully go into all this, but you want to start diving into the RPG, not the RPG, the campaign system. The campaign system is going to be a whole different level of trying to get all of these things for the Eclipse Madness campaign, the Fall of the Ancients, and all the campaign all-in for $214. We also have the Legends products, so you can get the Legends 3 hardcore bundle for $59, which means you're looking at like $850 to get your hands on everything, roughly, and that's before shipping, so a whole lot of money. But focusing on just trying to focus or to narrow the scope, if you're just getting the new things and all that, should you back or should you not, will it hold its value? Short version is kind of yes. If you look at the original campaigns in this is one that's almost surprisingly, I say, has done a good job holding its value in the secondhand market. If you look at some of their older campaigns, what the campaigns cost if you bought them, and what they're selling for now, both used and new, a lot of the HEXplore stuff, and I did not do a deep dive into every single iteration of it, that would just take too much time, but selecting certain HEXplore sets and just seeing how they've done, overall they have done well and are still holding up. So this is one that I think if you are interested in the game, it's popular enough, has enough of a following, and people will go ahead and people will want the new content for the game, both new people to the system as well as people who got the original content and missed out on the new follow-up content over here. So I think overall it is one that is likely to hold its value just based on the previous iterations of the system. From there we have Tales from the Red Dragon Inn, second printing over here. 2009 backers, 17 days to go, $176,000 raised. Tales from the Red Dragon Inn is, well, basically a continuation, or there's expansion content or new content. I don't know if it's expansion content. There's a second printing and new content for Tales from the Red Dragon Inn, which was a dungeon crawling version of the Tales from the Red Dragon universe that has been incredibly well received, very well rated. They start giving 9 out of 10, but across the board it's been very, very well received. I've not had a chance to play it myself, definitely been wanting to, but too many games at any given point. For $66, you have the original backers getting all the new stuff, so all the quality of life stuff, the new stuff. They try to focus very heavily. You don't need these things over here. Wait, no, sorry. For $8, you get the existing fans upgrade kit, which is the quality of life improvements to the game itself. Let's see if we can scroll down and follow. Just these 39 replacement standees, 3 extra power tokens, wide initiative bag, several cards with minor errata, some fairly basic stuff for $8 over there. For $66, you'll get all those quality of life improvements, but you also get the stretch goal minis pack, as well as the metal tokens. You get the metal ability tokens and the stretch goal minis from over here. For $98, this is basically targeting anyone who got the game at retail, but wants all the new stuff I just said, but also wants the original Kickstarter content from the original campaign. You can get for $98. And then from there you have the base game for $100 for newcomers to the system to get the game, which frankly you can get the game for less than $100 right now. So if you just wanted the game, you can literally go online and get the game right now and not wait for quite as long and pay less money. So situationally, you might not have access to that, so that might be a different conversation. If you're in a different region or country where that's not true, different conversation entirely. But if you do want the game, you could get the game. Granted, this will be the second printing. I should say that. Granted, this will be the second printing, so there is that aspect of things, but you're paying $100 plus shipping. Right now, I think even on Amazon it's like $98, and I didn't even price check to see where else you can get the game from. And then for new completionists, $180 if you want absolutely everything for the game system. That's going to be $180. As far as should you back or should you not, will it hold its value? Short version is kind of no. Looking at the secondhand market in this is one where the secondhand market has not been kind to the game. The game is rated incredibly well, which makes it almost surprising. The game is rated incredibly well, received incredibly well, built off a system that has been popular for the past 10 years plus, but ultimately the secondhand market in this one has definitely capped out. This is one where people who bought it for $100 or whatnot are selling their copies for like $60, taking a big hit on it if it wasn't a game for them. Moving on over here, we have Yield, Battle for Ashra and Art Book. 566 backers, $42,000 raised, 18 days to go. Yield is basically a fast-paced area control game from BFF Games, the creators who brought you, they brought you the hidden leader system, but also the deduction system. They brought you that whole entire deduction system that I can't remember the name of it offhand, but that one. What do they have it listed over here? Hidden leaders, no. They got hidden leaders, nope. 4 created, it might be under there. It is under, nope, it's not under there. I wonder, because I'm pretty sure BFF Games did it, but I do wonder if it's done under Colossus. Maybe it's under Colossus. Anyways, I think the picture will show up later on the campaign page. Anyways, Yield is the newest game. It's an area control game, a fast-paced area control game that's basically going to rely on hidden armies. You're going to have hidden armies in the game. You're going to have simultaneous card play, which is going to define, you know, which card you're playing. But then you're going to resolve the cards in turn order, trying to move your characters around the board, and then possibly setting yourself up for combat based on adjacency at the end of the round, or possibly having mid-round combat depending on the ambushes that are played. That's the basic idea of the game. Hidden armies, simultaneous selection, and area control as you fight back and forth over the towers, trying to build up your control on the towers in the game. There's an expansion as well, I believe. I believe there's an expansion over here. We have the base game over here for €65, around $70. We have the expansion over here, which is introducing more characters. So 5 new characters, each with double-sided abilities, will be in the expansion. That's going to be around $96. And then we have the all-in, which is for $124, giving you, well, all the stuff over there. As far as the game goes, let's go through the expansion. We covered this, we covered that. I want to see what the expansion does as well. I think there's new characters, but I can't remember if there's something else. Also, 3 special battle type cards and 6 curses, plus some additional tokens. So new, not a ton of stuff, but some new, a little bit of new everything added to the game. As far as should you back or should you not, will it hold its value? I have a hard time believing this one will hold its value. Just looking at the content you get for that $70 price point, because you're paying $7 for the base game over there, the content you get for that just makes me less certain this is a game that will hold its value, just perceptionally wise, what you're getting content wise versus the price of the game. Now, I always try to be mindful here. I can't comment at all on the actual costs or the reasons or the small publisher benefits or large publisher. I can't get into the reasons at their end. And in general, BF Games is a fantastic company. That they're really great people. That they've been very passionate about the industry, very kind as far as in general, like when you know, review coverage and all these things. But as far as the actual perception of value that I have from the contents in the game versus the price point, I have a hard time seeing that line up for the $70 over there. And again, this is one of their worst performing campaigns. Almost Innocent. The game is called Almost Innocent. I just think this one, as far as the game goes, it's doing okay. It's not doing poorly at all. $40,000 raised, and that's going to continue to grow throughout the campaign. But compared to Hidden Leaders, which saw an amazing amount of success across multiple campaigns, this one's definitely not seeing that level of adoption. And I do think the price point, like Hidden Leaders is a very affordable small box game. This is a slightly bigger box game, but the price point of what the game costs versus the content you're getting it, I don't have that perception of value there, and I do think it's going to have a harder time holding its value on the secondhand market. Moving on over there, we have the Fall of Kingdoms, a thrilling game of strategy and deception. 1,492 backers, $170,000 raised, 18 days to go, and I do highly recommend checking out the video on this game, because I'm going to get into a bunch of reasons not to back it soon enough, but the video is incredibly well done. The video is incredibly well done. I think that they knocked it out of the park, did a great job on the overall presentation, pulling you in, making you more invested. Great job on the video, smashed it out of the park. But past that, as far as the game itself, the game is going to be a strategic social deduction game in which every round players are going to be taking money, taking some default actions, and then paying into either some default actions or some character actions while negotiating with other players and trying to ensure that you're going to be the last one standing in the game. If any of that sounds vaguely familiar, or if you watch the video and it sounds vaguely familiar, or if I scroll down to the how to play and show you some of the cards over here, let's see, scroll down over here, we have our cards, our action selection over here, and if any of this stuff seems at all vaguely familiar, it's going to basically be coup. This game feels like it's coup, but with an extra level of negotiation thrown into the middle. So there are extra things going on. It's not exactly coup, but if you've played coup and you watch this video, this feels like coup. Now, the problem is it's not the price point of coup. The base game is going to be coming in at $39 over here. We have the expansion for $73. We have the expansion plus upgrade for $99. That's going to be before we get to the shipping on top of everything. How much is shipping over here? Shipping is going to run you up to $25. So basically, you're looking at the all-in on this one is coming in at around $125 to get your hands on this game for basically what is deluxe coup, with differences. Don't get me wrong, there are differences here, and if you're a huge fan of coup, or if you just pulled in enough by this, then by all means get this game. But if you're interested in this game and you haven't heard of coup, just get coup and see if that one works for your group first. It's a very well respected game, much more affordable, and also I should note this game, they do cover this, but they very much definitely use AI art across the board for the art, the presentation, the cards, all of that stuff, which I'm not inherently against, but it is one of those things that definitely I put it into a minor strike category. I'm considering whether to get a game or not. It's not a deal breaker for me, but it's worth knowing on your end in case it is a deal breaker for you. But that's basically the campaign over here. Everything looks great. The production looks great. The passion seems great. All those things look great. I do hope they have played Coup because it feels like it very much is in that alley. But anyways, past that, it's basically very deluxe, very expensive Coup, but with differences, so you might still be worth it for you. As far as should you back or should you not will hold its value, it's a hard one to say. The campaign's doing very well over here. 1,500 backers for a new creator. They definitely managed to pull in their audience. They are doing great in that aspect of things. So, is this a campaign that did the, no, there was a campaign. Which one was it? Oh, that's what it was. There's another campaign we're getting to that's the limited pleasures. We'll come back to it. Anyways, but yeah, the campaign's doing well enough. And so if they can maintain that success and audience throughout past the crowdfunding campaign, then it may well hold its value. But I'm skeptical it will. I think there's a lot more of this is from the hype, the marketing, and all that. And I think ultimately you have a game here that is basically a very expensive version of Coup, and it's pulling you in through the FOMO, the production, the great videos, all these things they did well from a marketing perspective, but those things tend to not hold as well once the game hits the market and we see how things go. And I have no clue if the game's even good or not, but they definitely did a good job pulling me in and making me invested until I realized I could just play Coup. So I'd put this in the maybe category, but I think it's more of a risk to get this one than anything else. Moving on, we have Imperial Borders, a grand post-Napoleonic game for 2 to 6 players by Larry Harris, the designer of War Room and Axis and Allies, which is very important because War Room is like, what is it, a 9.2 on BG or something ridiculous. It's a ridiculously high score. It might not be a 9.2, it might be lower than that, but it's a ridiculously high score. War Room is a very ambitious game. Has been very well received, has had a few printings, and you can also get it on this campaign as well. In case you're not interested in Imperial Borders, you could get your hands on War Room. This is a giant game that will take you hours and hours and hours to play. It's meant to be a giant, ambitious game. It's a game which you're going to be retreating off to your little corners, tactically planning how you're going to be moving your units, and then executing all simultaneously as you go ahead and follow through on the various giant machinations of your military conquest across the galaxy, across the board, as you go through this game. So a very ambitious war game with a lot of secret simultaneous planning in the game. As far as the pledge levels over here, we have $265 for the Imperial Borders, the board game, and we have $500 for Imperial Borders and War Room, and for those of you who want a quick math number, that means it's $235 to get your hands on War Room on top of the existing game over here. They're also offering free shipping. That's an important part over here because they do correctly cover that shipping for things like this usually would be in the $50 to $75 range, and they're giving you free shipping on the game, which is on both games possibly, which is very relevant, especially if you're interested in picking these up in the future. Which, as far as the, I guess we can go ahead and jump straight to the should you back it. This over here is War Room, by the way. This is Imperial Borders. You can go through some more content. There's definitely some more coverage of the game if you want more in-depth on those. But as far as the should you back or should you not, will it hold its value? It's hard not to look at this campaign and compare it to the last War Room campaign, which I believe they sold War Room for like $120, something like that. Some ridiculously cheaper price point. And that's currently jumped to $235. I have to assume that they realized they just couldn't make enough money at the price point and cost and all those things. I have to assume there's some changes over there as far as their ability to actually be a profitable company based on the last campaign. The tricky part is if you look at the original campaign and the price point of War Room versus how well it sold in the secondary market, it absolutely held its value. War Room was $120 or whatever it was, plus of course shipping and all that, and then sold in their secondary market for like $180, $190, so definitely did a great job holding its value. The problem is the $180, $190 on War Room is less than the current asking price of $235, which means it's in a weird spot where the original campaign held its value and the new campaign is more expensive than the original campaign, and Imperial Borders is also more expensive because, again, I have to assume they're making decisions based on how much things actually cost and how well things have gone, and so that puts it in a weird spot where these games are incredibly expensive, incredibly ambitious. I do think they have their audience, but it's hard for me to say whether they'll hold the value because the last time they held the value, it was doing so based on a game that was half the price point. So there's just in a weird spot for me overall. If I had to guess, I'd say that these games are less likely to hold their value. I just think the sheer price point of them moves them to a different bracket where I think you're not going to get that much back. And I think the first campaign existing is going to hurt because you have a market of people who paid less for the game. And that's going to additionally hurt, at least for sure, on the War Room side of things, less so on the Imperial Border side of things overall. So it could hold its value. Again, he's a well-respected designer. These games are one of a kind. It definitely still could fall in the could category, but my guess is that just the price point is just a lot at the end of the day. Moving on, we have Piri Summoners, handcrafted wood and meeple strategy game, 852 backers, $73,000 raised, 24 days to go. Piri Summoners is, well, coming from the company from the Wodas, who in general have done a combination of games plus wooden aspects of table presence for their games. Like if you look at their past games, they all have that wooden aspect of pieces plus games on top of it. Now, I will say before we dive into this campaign is doing the limited fake pledges over here. We have a limited quantity of pledges at a certain level before it jumps up to the next level where it's a little more expensive, and it's meant to be a price hook because you can see over here 334 pledges. That's just not very likely. And you see that across these over here, we have 2 left of 308, and we have 1 left of 76 over here. So you're seeing over here all the pledge levels seem to be constantly adjusted around whatever is going to be there to hook you into the lower price point. I've talked about this extensively in other videos. I am incredibly against the tactic. I tend to try to be sympathetic to the companies. I don't know if they realize or they're pushed into it by marketing agencies. And if you scroll down to this campaign over here, at the bottom over here, let's scroll down, they have a host of marketing agencies all at the bottom over here that are just like, any number of these. We can have a Kick Booster, a Backer, Backer Club, or Back Kit, or Backer Crew, or Backer Spaces. There's way too many Backer anything that are basically potential people who push them into this marketing strategy. So my own 2 cents on this whenever this happens is, I think, lying to your audience and constantly adjusting the amount of pledges, creating a false perception of value that is effectively FOMO without even the benefit of giving them anything, because it's just it's a lie. It's effectively a lie. There's 75 pledges. No, there's not. Now there's 79. Now there's 86. Now there's 89. Whatever number you need to do to constantly move the goalpost and create a sense of value even though there isn't. Whenever I see this, there's different marketing tactics in the board game space. I am against some, less against others, but this one in particular to me is the most egregious tactic. Again, I'm sympathetic to the company. I don't know their intent, but at the end of the day, to me, this is just lying to your customers point blank again and again and again, because, hey, it makes them feel like they're getting a deal, even though you're just constantly moving the goalposts. So very against that practice in general, and I will call it out very vocally whenever I see it, because I'd like it to not exist, frankly. But past that, as far as the game itself, the game does fall into being a lighter category of game. You're going to have a hand of cards, you're going to have a little rock, paper, scissors element, you're going to be placing cards down, be mindful of how it's going to help you and generate mana for you, but also how it might end up creating tactical combos, either for you or for your opponent, based on the way cards also want to try to score, as you try to get your summoners in play. But overall, which actually sounded less light than I think the game is, I think the game is on the lighter side, but I think there is some gameplay there, but it also has those nice little wooden figurines and some nice box sets to present them. As far as should you back or should you not will hold its value, just looking at the pledge levels over here, we're going to have the tricky pledge levels over here. We have $56 for the early bird summoner package over here. We have $85 if you also want that wooden box over there on top of it. And then if you want that with amazing early bird, the game mat on stretch goals, the game mat 2 for $109. So overall, as far as their campaigns in general have gone in the past, if you look at their past campaigns, they usually don't do a great job holding their value, at least on the board game geek secondhand market. Meaning, I don't know if there's other places. This falls into a weird space where it's not just a board game, it's also a table piece. So it's possible it's a different conversation. But at least on the board game side of things, these have not generally held the value as well. They are leaning into a slightly different audience with some degree of overlap for sure, but not exactly the same thing. And then lastly over here, we're going to have Peaks. Peaks is going to be coming to you from Tangerine Games. This is 24 days to go, 1,079 backers, $81,000 raised. Peaks is giving you a mountain climbing game, but not in the way I typically see mountain climbing games in the board game space. Generally, historically speaking, mountain climbing games that I've seen, K2, The Climb? Is it The Climb? Is that what it's called? And no, The Climb is the VR game. What's the Summit? Summit over there, and I think there's been a few others as well. Generally, mountain climbing games that I've seen actually focus on the mountain climbing side of things. This one doesn't seem to as much. This one seems to be focusing it more abstracted, meaning you're climbing mountains, but it's less about the experience of climbing mountains, and it's more about wandering the board, taking one of 3 actions to prepare yourself to be able to actually go on these climbs as you wander around, and you have these cards that represent the climbs, but you need to kind of, gather your resources and then commit to those. There's also going to be an interesting follow the leader kind of aspect of the game where it will benefit you to be around others and to ascend, benefiting from their work, lending itself to a good combination of trying to figure out your own puzzle, but also making sure you're in the right place in the right time to take advantage of what the other players are doing, which removes that multiplayer solitaire aspect of things. You definitely are being mindful of the other players as you go through the game. So it's a mountain climbing game, but a little less focused on the detailed mountain climbing and a little more on the set collection kind of mountain climbing as you try to plant your literal flags over the map until the first player gets rid of all their flags. Then over here we have for the pledge levels, we have $49 for the aspiring climber over here. We have $69 for the backpacker. That's going to be more the Kickstarter deluxe version of the game. That's going to give you the deluxe game with upgraded meeples, upgraded standees or whatnot, upgraded tokens, and player trays as well. And then for $89, an additional $20 on top of that, you're also going to get the dice mat, the play mat, and the dice tray as well on top of that. And then from there past there, we have the alpinist, which is going to give you the likeness companion. So you're going to have that extra aspect of being a card in the game in some way, shape, or form. The illustrator is going to draw you into the game as a card. As far as should you back or should you not will hold this value, it could go a little either way in this one. I think the price point on it, again, in general, the Aspiring Climber for that retail standard pledge, usually it'll be cheaper to get that game in retail in general when you have the chance. For $69, the shipping on the game isn't terrible, but it is going to add to that. You're going to be looking at the $20 on top of it, bringing you to $89 for the game. And I do think that pricing-wise, once you factor in shipping, I do think it pushed it a drop into a category where I think it's a little less likely to hold its value. It is doing well enough, though. It definitely is. It's funded over here. We have 1,000 backers. It's going to continue to grow. It may well be 2,000 backers by the end of the campaign. So it is doing well for them. I'm happy for them overall. But the question is, for that $89 price point, I think when you're looking at the second-hand market after the campaign, if this is a game that doesn't work for you, I think you'll have a hard time getting that full $89. But a big part of that is the shipping pushing you over, which is something you do see as you go through campaigns. Like, at the end of the day, sometimes shipping is the thing that can push people over and make a campaign less likely to back, or less willing to back. And that's basically what we have over here for the campaigns, which means it's time for our Picks of the Week. Picks of the Week is where we take a look at two of the campaigns, one that I think is the most likely to hold its value overall, and one that is my personal interest pick of the week. And to that end, my value pick of the week, I'm going to go ahead and give it to HEXplore over here. HEXplore at the Mountains of Godai has done incredibly well. If you look at the system in general, the system, despite having had multiple systems and iterations, has still done a good job of continuously holding its value, and so I am going to give this one as my pick of the week, for my value pick of the week. As far as my personal interest pick of the week, I did debate Odalin because I do like Dragori games, I do like Tenaris Adventures, and I am very excited for Odalin, but I also do have a degree of big box fatigue that has me a drop pull back from this one, and to that I'm going to go ahead and give it to Iliad and Ichor as my personal interest pick of the week. I don't know if these games will work for me or not. Honestly, most of Reina Knitzer's games, I usually play them and enjoy them and I move on from them, but these do look like my kind of games, so maybe they fall into that narrower category of the Reina Knitzer games I love and continuously try to table. So I am very interested in Iliad and Ichor, and it's going to be my personal interest pick of the week. As far as campaigns coming up next week, we have a few things. We're going to have Kemet over here, Kemet Rise of Gods from Matago, launching very shortly, giving you new content to the Kemet universe, and they're also going to have Brink from Ivy Studios launching as well in a few days, and both those are, well, one of those Brink, well, actually I've played both of those. Well, either way, I've played both those, and we'll talk more about those ones soon. But yeah, both of these games over here, if you want to check them out, they'll be launching soon. And that is basically everything. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I appreciate you being here, and as always, I hope you have a good one. So archaeologists apparently recently discovered a very rare worn-down pencil that they say belonged to William Shakespeare. Right now, they're still arguing if the pencil is to be or not to be.